Welcome back to Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan on Fijivillage. And it is a pleasure to have the head of the vaccination task force of the Health Ministry, Dr. Rachel Devi, with us this morning. Dr. Rachel, first of all, thank you very much for making out time during your busy schedule to talk to our listeners and our users this morning.
Thank you, Vijay. It's always a pleasure because, we're in this fight together and we really want the right information going out to every Fijian out there listening.
Dr. Rachel, since we last spoke, of course, you had set some targets and you had said that more doses will be coming from Australia, 70,000 doses in total. And of course, we were expecting more people getting second doses. A total of about 59,000 you're saying were due for second doses from last week onwards. So how has vaccination gone so far?
Thank you, Vijay. Yes, an important question for Fiji in terms of where we are, how we're doing, and what's our stats like in terms of vaccination rollout. So yes, we did get the 70,000 last weekend. In two batches, 20,000 and the 50,000 in the weekend last week. And then we anticipate another batch of around, I think 65,000 or so vaccines coming in from Australia. So like we mentioned, we did roll out, we did start off with our second jab for those individuals who had received the Covishield AstraZeneca from India. And since then, we have increased significantly in terms of our second dose. We've done 27,654 individuals who've been fully vaccinated now. And 151 individuals having gotten their first jab in Fiji. So it's a good number, but I know there is still, we haven't reached even our 50% target of our targeted population. So it's important that we keep persevering on this. And more importantly, that those individuals who are now due for their second dose come forth for this vaccination, so that that just makes us fully vaccinated and significantly protected. Thank you.
Dr. Rachel, based on supply coming in, how is your vaccination rate and supply being managed at the moment?
Jay, that's an important that has been an important part of our whole vaccination rollout program, because our vaccination rollout program is solely dependent on what's available in the country. And I must say, I'm really thankful to the Australian government, and soon we're also organizing things with the New Zealand government, with both DFED and MFED, in getting more vaccines into the country. And basically what's happened is, depending on what was available in the country is how we've rolled out to every part of the country. And we know we started off with a small containment area within the Suvarnasori corridor. Then we expanded to the greater Vitilevu areas. And then now, as of this week, we have managed to step into Vanuatu and get a good amount of vaccines across there. And I think we're in a better position to keep supplying them with vaccines. We're almost ending towards June, finishing off with June. So I think we are anticipating a constant supply to the north, and hopefully we can supply a portion of vaccines to the Eastern Division as well. Though we do understand the Eastern Division is always geographically challenged and capacity there is not so significant, but we will definitely strategize to ensure that every eligible Fijian is vaccinated out there. So in terms of supply and the rollout, it's going well, it's getting better. And on an average, we did see close to 30,000, between 30 to 70,000 a week that we were jabbing individuals. And this was initially with first doses. Now we're similarly doing about 30 to 40,000 a week with both dose 1 and dose 2. Which is a huge number. So I think that's good, but we need to just continue and be persevering in this fight against COVID-19 in Fiji.
Dr. Rachel, some questions continue to come up from the ground, and of course, this is the place where we get factual information out, debunk all the myths that are being circulated, and continue to ensure that all the disinformation is addressed. One of the issues that has started to develop and being widely shared is about the issue regarding how was this vaccine developed, and a lot of false information surrounding it. If you can clear the air for our users and listeners, please.
Sure, absolutely, Vijay. I mean, that's an important question, and honestly, everybody obviously has a right to know that information because one of the biggest things is some diseases even to date don't have a vaccine because they haven't been able to make a breakthrough in that area. But a number of diseases have gotten vaccines developed now. I think the most recent one, apart from COVID, was malaria and a few other ones. But having said that, vaccination development takes a process. It's a stepwise process, and this step almost includes three phases of it, where obviously the development of the vaccine happens, and before it's even tested on humans, it's trialed on the animals. And once that's done and it's seen to be okay, and then that's when they step up to doing clinical trials in humans. So one of the things that had happened with these vaccines is when in the whole expedited process, like I said, there's three different phases of things, and there is a certain amount of population it is studied on. And when we do these studies, for example, we look at the Pfizer vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine. That study would have taken place in a certain group of population, like 20, 30, 40,000 individuals being jabbed with dose one, and a certain amount of that dose, for example, 0.5 mil, 0.25 mil, all those things are considered. And and in that study, as it progressed, the results tell us how to progress better and what's the effectiveness of that vaccine, the efficacy of it, and how best to progress it. And the biggest thing is the safety of the vaccine. What are the side effects of it, and what are the outcomes of things? Has there been any adverse event? So for those clinical trials, every individual that gets into that clinical trial knows about it and signs off on it. And I know sometimes people have said, oh, we don't want to be guinea pigs in Fiji. We don't want to be another group of vaccine trials. No, there is no vaccination trial going on Fiji. I must say there's millions and millions of vaccines that's been already administered right across the world before even it came to Fiji. So basically, yes, like three phases of trials that happen. And once we complete those three phases of trials by that particular group of scientists and organization, for example, AstraZeneca, once that was done, a country, that result again goes to the country's regulatory systems. For example, if I give you UK, UK was one of the first countries in the world to have started their vaccination, I think in December. So with that, when they started, before they started, these data would have gone to that regulatory authority. This is another group of a separate group of individuals who assess the data, look at the numbers, crunch the numbers again, and say, okay, this is safe for us now. And then they okay to administer it amongst their population. So that's what UK did, and that's when progressively FDA, the America did, and gradually everyone's done the same. And in that process, we've got to be mindful. In December, these data was getting to WHO. Now, with the countries whose regulatory systems, for instance, we don't have scientists who can crunch those data, look at these vaccine content, etc. WHO does a lot of that tasks for us developing countries in that context. So WHO looks at that data, looks at the credibility of things, and gets things moving. So when they have looked at all these data, they approve. This is a whole group of technical people coming together, scientists, epidemiologists, public health specialists, etc. And they look at the data and certify it to be good, to be under the emergency use listing for WHO or not. Once that is done and that process is followed, then they release it and they let the world know, okay, WHO's done this, and then countries like us, we pick it up from there and then we progress on it. That's one of the reasons why AstraZeneca, when it was being developed, it gradually, as soon as it got the endorsement, that's when it came to the COVAX facility, and it was distributed equally to all countries, including the Pacific. So one thing I can say is that the 3 phases of clinical trials for any vaccine development was followed, every single phase of it. There was no single compromise in those processes. And once that was done and proven safe and effective for use, that's when it was released for utilization for inoculations in individuals. And that was that's something important that we do need to know, that no compromise at all was done in the whole process of development.
Dr. Rachel, the other issue that some people are raising, why develop a vaccine when you could not come up with a cure? What's your comments on that?
You know, Vijay, this is something that we do need to know. Now, if you look at it, there's a few diseases out there that don't have a cure for it, but have vaccines. For example, like when we look at vaccines is a preventative measure. It prevents you and prevents you from getting sick, prevents you from getting that illness. Now, with this COVID-19 vaccines, it's a preventative measure again. I think, I'm not sure if I mentioned with you, but I have mentioned in previous other places that vaccine is one of the most studied, sophisticated aspect of a public health response globally. We've eradicated so many diseases with vaccines. We've controlled it. We've eliminated it. So there's a lot of work that has gone in vaccines, and that's one of the reasons why when this virus came about, we knew that apart from the normal mitigation strategies, vaccination was one of the key to it. Because we already know there is no specific treatment for it. So and we know that now vaccines work. So that's one of the important things. The credibility of vaccines is that it reduces significant amount of disease, the burden in itself. And I must say, the vaccines for COVID-19 does similarly. It's the same thing. And when we talk about it, it may not prevent getting the disease, but it surely does prevent you from severe illness, from dying, from hospitalization, from the extreme of things. And we know that we've already seen more than, I believe, millions of deaths right across the world with COVID-19. And we constantly see it. Even in Fiji, we've seen a few deaths. Well, this few is a number for Fiji. It is still a number, and that's too much.
Dr. Rachel, the other question keeps coming up from some is why Fiji is not getting Pfizer or Moderna? Why Fiji is getting AstraZeneca?
And a good question, an important one as well. So Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, even the Janssen vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson one, and quite a number of other vaccines that have been developed have been out there. And I must say, I think only 4 or 5 of them are in the WHO emergency use listing now. But, you know, we've got to be mindful. There's like hundreds of vaccines out there right now being developed, but only that which has proven to be safe was what has been endorsed by WHO. Now, for Fiji, why did we choose AstraZeneca and not Pfizer and Moderna and the others? So basically what had happened was we obviously were ready to take on Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, whichever would have come our way. Now, with these things, manufacturers are limited, supply is limited. Now, for instance, with Pfizer, the storage capacity, while it was the storage capacity for Pfizer is -80, meaning we need -80 storage capacity to store all our vaccines. While we didn't have it, we knew we could have that capacity of storing it. We had a few -80 fridges, and we would have purchased more if we needed it. But unfortunately, when Pfizer was being made available to Fiji, we did not have cases in Fiji. Thus, they were redirected to other countries, and which was deemed priority through the COVAX facility. This is the COVAX facility is basically the arm of the vaccination arm in the COVID-19 pandemic. That's what COVAX facility is. Now, that arm in itself redistributed vaccines according to the need in the countries, and we know hundreds and thousands of people were dying in so many developing countries and developed countries, thus redirected to places that really needed it to prevent those deaths. And when vaccines were made available, and that's when AstraZeneca was the second vaccine that got WHO listing, like under the emergency use listing. And they had a number of manufacturing plants as well. Thus, that was offered to Fiji, and despite not having much cases, it was offered to Fiji in terms from the equitable access, like as an equal access to any country, including developing countries like us. So with that equitable access, we were given AstraZeneca, and soon after that, I think India even offered the AstraZeneca vaccine, and now since there's a manufacturing plant in Australia, they've even offered us the AstraZeneca, which kind of fits in well for our program in terms of the rollout. And apart from that, like I mentioned, Pfizer and Moderna have an ultra cold chain capacity requirement. AstraZeneca falls in very well with our existing vaccination program for children. For example, the AstraZeneca vaccine is stored in +2 to +8 storage capacity, and it falls very well into that storage capacity and the cold chain aspect of storing vaccines. Because when you would have been to the vaccination sites, you would have seen a box, a blue kind of box that stores the vaccines. Now, those boxes actually have ice packs, and the heartbeat of vaccination is the cold chain capacity of it. And for any country to have received vaccines, we needed to be rest assured that our cold chain capacity was strong. And Fiji, we know we've got very good cold chain capacity. We've got very good immunization program from before, where we've had 95 plus vaccination coverages for other diseases such as measles and so many others. So AstraZeneca fell right within the whole immunization system, we say in Fiji. So that kind of just rolled into place for us.
Your discussion is still underway in relation to vaccination for children, WHO's assessment on that?
Yes, those are discussions I believe we will eventually have when we would have finished and or maybe progressing better with the target population with the adults, because we know that majority of the infection literally affects those older population with especially with comorbid issues, which makes them vulnerable. While deaths globally haven't been significant, a minority amongst children, we needed to prioritize this population first. But definitely we will be exploring vaccines where possible, and which is safe, proven safe for children as well. So I think with all the studies going around, we will eventually know what the direction vaccines give us. I know Pfizer has already been endorsed for 12 to 16, 12 to 18, sorry. Pfizer is already originally given to 16 years and above, and now they are administering it with 12 to 16 in certain countries. I know US and Canada and a few, I think UK have probably moved in that direction, and a few others as well. So we definitely will explore that because ultimately we are seeing a good number of children being affected by COVID in Fiji as well. There is a small proportion, but there is a proportion of even, toddlers being affected by COVID. So yeah, I think to protect our Fijians, our children as well, we need to be a bit more proactive in this.
There's some people who are getting mixed up with a number of videos still being circulated on social media, and just relying on that information, which seems to be a real concern to a number of people. There's one that came up, just said, I've just got information from the videos that I've got, and COVID-19 is a lie, and this is just to get these shots into the arms of people. Your comments to those people who may be watching this video?
Think yeah, I think I've even personally seen a few of those things on social media, that COVID is a whole lie, hoax and everything. But I think, it doesn't take us too far for us to see reality. It's just in our doorstep. We've had COVID-19 deaths in Fiji. We've had COVID-19 deaths in the Pacific. PNG is a good example, where people were literally dying in the car parks and couldn't get to the hospital or dying elsewhere. So I mean, I can't imagine how more real could things be. And we've seen crematoriums in India, in parks where kids used to play. We've seen those videos. It's obviously sad. I think when it was shared, it was moments that I think none of us wanted to see, because we don't want to be at that stage, and or even want to see anything like that in Fiji for sure. So, how more real could it be? I can't imagine what people need to see and believe, but I think we as Fijians need to take heed of what's happened globally, and take heed of it and contextualize it locally, bring it to our local context and see it. We're getting hundreds of cases a day. It's no joke. We're holding on right now, but we need all Fijians to be doing this together. Honestly, we're seeing communities being affected, going into lockdowns. We're seeing we are seeing deaths, some unfortunately from COVID-19. So how more real could this be? And to top it off, globalization has come to a standstill with this pandemic, where we could travel to a country in less than 24 hours. We can't even do that. And it's been months, it's been more than a year, we haven't been able to do that. If this is no joke, and people have lost their jobs, people are going hungry, so much is happening. So I think we need to do a rain check on realities. Like, okay, should I don't believe those videos in terms of that, because see what's in the news, what's credible. Go back to the credible sources of information, rather than believing any Tom, Dick, and Harry out there in terms of what's happening. Is just a hoax, because it's not, it's reality. And that's why flying so much in the country, our people are at home for almost more than 2 weeks, 2 months. So that's reality, is just here at home in Fiji. That's what I'd say. Just look at our door, next door step, and it's there. So just be careful.
Dr. Rachel, also your officials, your teams go through every day huge risks in the community to try to get the doses in the arms of people. You've had cases where people have been exposed at vaccination sites. How are you coping with that so far?
It's the risk with healthcare workers, and not just healthcare workers right now, frontliners, even our volunteers. The risk is huge out there, but we've definitely stepped up and made sure that our people are protected first as well. Because when we are protected, we have our respective like protective gears that we wear, like gowns and masks, face shields, and all that. We know we are protected, and because that, we honestly at this point in time, we need to keep going. If we stop, it's going to be uh, I can imagine, but it's going to be not so nice, because we don't want to stop this vaccination. We can't stop containing this virus. We have to continue with it. We have to be resilient people to just continue with it, because that's important for not just for us, but for the country in itself. And we know medical space is a technical it is a technical space as well. So while we've got qualifications, we definitely take oath to protect the country, protect every individual. So that's essential for us. So because we know, even within the vaccination teams, we've had a few teams that had to step down because there were positive cases that they were primary contacts of, and But I must say they finished off their term of isolating, getting all the swabs necessary checked done, and they're back on again. And the moment they're back on, and they just hit the ground and then keep running, because that's what we are here to do. We are here to reach that our target population of vaccination per se, and then make sure our people are protected, because the last thing we really want to see is when there's a vaccine available, why die from a disease when the vaccine's available? I mean, that's one thing I'd like to just say. It's like, I guess that's one of the things that keeps us going as healthcare workers, as frontliners.
Dr. Rachel, what keeps your team members motivated and encouraged on a daily basis?
That's a good question. I think, like I mentioned, I think the target is a number, but protecting individuals is of essence. And I must say, there've been so many people praying. We share encouraging messages with each other. We share encouraging words within the teams, within our Viber groups, to keep it going, and knowing that this will come to an end soon, when once we've protected people, and we then in that sustainability mode. So, and the team effort, I must say, the team effort, the team's resilience is amazing. I must say, I applaud the team on the ground. They just keep going despite the misinformation that's been going around. It slowed the move in terms of the first doses for us a bit. Even some were even hesitant with the second dose, but we've been persistent. We wanted to get the right information out. So I think those things discourage us sometimes, but we have to fight this fight, and that's one thing that we know, and there's a heavy burden we carry on our shoulders. But I know we always say together we can, because together definitely we can as Fijians, and that's one thing that keeps us going. That encouragement, that team effort, and the prayers together, and even to the point the country praying behind us as well. I constantly get messages, and I constantly hear people saying, "Doc, we've got you covered. We're praying for you guys." There's so much of those messages come our way, and those encouragements help us. They keep us going, and they definitely keep us moving, and that translates back down to the ground as well, them encouraging each other. So that's of essence right now. And I think together as a nation, we need to just be still and pray, and fight this fight together. So yeah.
My final question is in relation to post-vaccination. What happens after people get vaccinated? Some people say, I can go back to my previous lifestyle of drinking grog with my friends and family members, etc. Of course, things cannot be done in a hurry, as many people have not been fully vaccinated. If you can talk about that, please.
That's an important thing to note. I mean, we all really want to go back to a normal lifestyle, and as Fijians, as Pacific Islanders, we're so we miss our hugs, we miss those handshakes, we miss those moments. But honestly, the time is not there right now. We will get there, and we'll get there together if we pitch in this together in terms of getting our jabs done. And right now, with having gotten both your doses, we still need, remember, we haven't even crossed 50% of our target population. We haven't eased down any restrictions in place. We haven't eased off anything in terms of even mask wearing. We can't do that till we know a huge number of our population is protected. So I think it banks back onto all of us. I mean, if we can do this together, and if we can shield up together and give that protection to this country, to our people, to our children as well, we will get to that stage. But as for now, not right now, not anytime soon. And we haven't even crossed that 70% mark for second dose. We're very far, we're far off from it, but not months. We're just months away from it. But so I think we should hold back a bit. We can do it, but eventually when the day is right, but the time is not right now. So hold on to those moments where you want to hug your family, friends, and and have a session with them or something. But it's the time is not right now. So even if you're fully protected with vaccination, remember there are others who aren't. And we remember what I've been saying is while we are jabbed, we can still be carriers and transmit the virus to others. So while we're at it, just protect yourself, protect the whole country. Just do the right thing, be responsible.
Remember that message, nothing in a hurry, please. We'll get you that information when you can, and that information will come through after people are vaccinated based on the target population. Dr. Rachel, thank you very much for your time. Great work by the team on the ground, by the vaccination teams going to the north this week. A lot of excited people up in Vanuatu. We'll join you again next week. Thank you.